Hello. What's up? What was that? All right. How are you guys? What's up? Oh my god. How nice is it knowing that this stream is not going to be 3 hours long? It's refreshing, right? It's a good feeling. It feels good for me, I'll tell you that much. Nothing clip worthy for sure. Look, we got to stop pretending like this stream has more reach than it does. You know what I mean? When the haters don't even show up on my stream, that's when you know we're kind of enclosed into what we are. You know what I mean? You know, I don't. I think we're past the point of I say something, it's posted on Twitter, and then everyone's discussing it. Granted, I've never I haven't been on Twitter recently, so maybe everything I do say is still trending, but I heavily, heavily doubt that. So, I'm just gonna say my little big brother opinions. I did some research. I got notes today, so I don't. I've said a lot of these opinions before, but I think this is a more well thought out list. It's a PowerPoint stream. So, I know you guys love those. We'll talk about the Reddit first, but, not too much. An educated king. Oh, and we're only getting more educated over the years. Cory shot 39 in the front today. Don't ask about the back nine. 39 solid. You could break 80. I believe it. My dad plays second in the Broward Amateur today. It's our county. Pretty impressive stuff. He shot even par over 2 days. Sucks playing golf with him. It's too good. It's very emasculating. Especially playing with my grandfather, who's also really good. Like, shoots low 80s, high 70s at 81 years old. Like, it's insane. Playing with him sucks. Like, getting outplayed by your 80-year-old grandfather, there's not even shame in it. He's just good. But it certainly feels shitty. But how are you guys? Barry's in the other room celebrating. So Barry's on a bit of a hiatus. Your video game golf with him was good? Yeah. Got full of myself and fell apart in the heat, 11 to 16 holes. That happens to me a lot. Just I run out of gas because I don't eat or sleep poorly the night before. Usually I play early in the morning and I don't go to bed early, so. Zach does not golf, no. Do you guys have any theories what's going to be on this list? In your heads, like these big moments of revisionist history? This is mostly based on the fan base, by the way. Like the fans remembering something incorrectly. Because I don't think my list is exactly like the most shocking stuff. I think a lot of what you expect will be on there, but I think these things are often under-discussed, or at the very least discussed with a bit of context. Everyone being BB24 Taylor's, being on her side. It's interesting. I thought about putting something with Taylor, but I feel like Taylor has such a split opinion around her. I don't think there's a ton of revisionist history there. You know what I mean? Like, there are some people who I think elevate her game more than they should, but there's also a ton of people who put down her game more than they should. And I feel like we average out to about an accurate portrayal, right? It's not like unanimously everyone thinks Taylor's a mastermind or the opposite, When people call Bella from BB21 a queen. America said the same thing to me, and I was like, I don't got to dedicate this much of my stream to Bella. Like, I feel like it's almost shady. Like, what did she do to me for me to have a whole, actually, guys, Bella sucked segment 6 years later? I feel like that is crazy. People liking Vanessa, I didn't put that one, but that's because that one's not really revisionist in the sense of it's just an opinion of did you like her or not? But she's definitely beloved now in a way that she was not beloved during the season. She was hated. Oh my god. Oh my god. But let's talk about the Reddit. This is going to be a short stream, about an hour, maybe a little under an hour. We're just going to get through this list, get through the Reddit, and get off, watch Love Island. So, nothing crazy today. Don't get your hopes up. But it should be fun. Let's talk about the Reddit, see if there's anything worth talking about. My 4th place gameplay tier list. Okay. What jumps out to me? I think Caleb in F tier is kind of based. It's probably wrong. Heart rate challenge today, that's right. It's probably wrong. He probably did have more win equity and stuff, but I don't care. It's fine. Felicia in D tier, I think is correct, but I am surprised they put her here. Um, Cliff in C tier is jarring to me. That seems kind of insane. Mike has different volume on the scene. Let me fix it on the other scene first. Yeah, okay. I'm maxed out both of them, so you should be able to adjust your audio accordingly on both. If you think it's peaking too much, I could change that too. But now they are the same at least. I think Cliff being this low is kind of wild to me. Christmas being this high, kind of wild to me. Johnny Mac, I don't know where I put him. I think Brittany maybe. I don't know. This whole tier, I think McCrae should move up. Angela is the one jarring person. What the fuck is Angela doing here? Angela should be probably D tier alongside these people. I don't think she's even makes it to C tier. She was drawing dead so early. She reminds me of Blue in a lot of ways. Of like she burns so many bridges for no reason, and like she doesn't beat anyone in the jury. It was just tough. I think Blue actually had more win equity than Angela. Shane, I think people overrate people like Shane quite a bit, where it's like he did have a ton of win equity. That doesn't make him a great player. Same with Cory, but they could have won. Nokomis seems a little like she could go up a tier, but a bit of an overrated player. Kyland, I think, is a weird one where like he's really good and did a lot, but also was so stupid in the end game that it makes it kind of hard to rate. Brittany in B tier is probably just wrong for BB12. I think April in A tier, like, she did have a ton of win equity and wins that season a lot of the time, so I get it, but, like, how active was she? Same with Hardy. Hardy, I think, was much more active than April. But I do think April was probably just as good as Maggie if she ends up winning that season, I don't hate this list. I think it's fine. I think the only big adjustments is Angela is way too high. And I think Cliff is way too low. I think he's closer to A tier than C tier. Johnny Mac didn't really do much at all. I guess. I think McCrae is a lot better than Johnny Mac, right? I don't know. Interesting list. Interesting group of players. Winners. Anything that's crazy here? Definitely a Will hater. I don't know. I think Casey is way too low. I think Casey is clearly in this B tier as opposed to being with these guys. I think Ian's too high. I think Ian should go down to Josh and Jordan. Don't give a shit about Adam. I think Dan in A tier is puzzling to me. I don't know why he's not S. I don't think he's the best game of all time, but I think it's S for sure. And then Maggie, I think, is too high. I think Maggie, you drop down a tier. I'd argue Drew higher. I think a lot of people have opinions like that where it's like, damn, I wish you could tell me what Drew did well and what he did poorly. I just don't think any of us know Drew's flaws as a player because, like, I don't know what the Big Brother 5 live feeds. I could pretend, but I think this list is fine. I think Ian's a bit low. Jag, I think he belongs in the bottom tier, but I think he's better than all the other players in the bottom tier. I still think he's better than Josh. I think he's probably similar to Jordan and most similar to Ian. I think that's his best comp. I think Jag and Ian are basically the same player. Jag had a lot more agency and Ian wasn't evicted. So it's like, how do you square those things? Yeah, I think it's fine. I'm not shocked with any of this. BB26 winner updated thoughts. Just talking about Chelsea's game. I think people have actually settled correctly on Chelsea's game. I think there was a lot of overrating, a lot of underrating. I think we're at the right spot now. You know what I mean? Where she's like clearly one of the top 5 winning games of all time. Probably back half of the top 10 just as a player. Not perfect, but no one is pretty good. I think that's the right spot to consider Chelsea. And I feel like we've gotten there, and I didn't expect that. I thought people would be grossly under or overestimating her. Or overrating her, rather. But I think that's fair. Are you guys ready for this list? I don't feel the need for much of a prelude today. I like yapping about, excuse me, the actual subject matter of the stream. When do you think we'll see the cast for 27? Probably like 2 days before the show. It starts on July 10th, so probably the 8th. Maybe even the 9th, It'll probably be leaked the 7th or the 8th, though. Okay. Let's talk about revisionist history. And let's first of all talk about what it means. Okay. Revisionist history does not mean a perception that the fan base has that is wrong. If the perception of the fan base is Dr. Will is the second best player of all time, and I believe Dr. Will is actually like the seventh best player of all time or something like that, that does not mean people are, using revisionist history. That's just people having a different opinion than me, right? What I am trying to argue is each one of these moments I'm going to discuss happened in a very different way to how we remember it. Also, the discussion around these moves in the moment was extremely different from our discussions after the fact because we know the results of that season. Basically, we're talking about hindsight bias, revisionist history, results-oriented thinking. These are kind of like the big buzzwords that can be used to encapsulate what this stream is. Salad or chicken tacos for dinner? Chicken tacos, are you kidding me? What a goofy question. Understand? Maggie's a mastermind will be up there for me. Yeah, I considered it. I have 2 honorable mentions and then a top 5 list. We're going to start with the honorable mentions. And the first one, I'm going to need you guys to go into the time capsule. We're going back, what is it, about 16 years, 15 years? And first off, we have Jesse would have won BB11 if not for the coup d'etat. Now, this isn't the exact perspective that everyone has to hold, but the idea that Jesse was running the house and because of the coup d'etat, he got screwed. That's not true. Certainly he got screwed. That much is obvious. The coup d'etat ended his game at this point where it wouldn't have been ended otherwise. That's true. But Jesse had the opposite of a clear runway moving forward. He's very likely booted in the next few weeks. And he's remembered very differently. In a lot of ways, I think Jesse was saved by the coup d'etat because he didn't get to have a normal downfall, which was very clearly coming. Let me pull it up. I think this is a crazy perspective. So first of all, Jesse already didn't have control of his house. Russell's winning HOHs the week previous, targeting Ronnie. Even though Jesse's desperate to keep Ronnie, he fails. So his kind of power structure with Russell it's already kind of fading away. Not to mention, if he doesn't go during the coup d'etat, Russell is probably evicted, and Russell's probably one of the only people willing to keep Jesse. That's damaging. Of course, he has people like Shima and Lydia, but even like Lydia is kind of drifting away along with Kevin. So his power structure just in general is more fragile than I think people remember. The other thing is Michelle wins the following HOH. That probably wouldn't have boded well in any capacity for Jesse. Of course, in this world, Jesse could win HOH, and then the game is all totally different. But assuming Michelle still wins, Jesse's in a lot of trouble. The biggest problem with Jesse's game, of course, he wasn't targeting Jeff and Jordan, and Jeff and Jordan were targeting him. And Jeff and Jordan won a shit ton of competitions. We're going to win a shit ton of competitions regardless of if Jesse was there or not. There was really no path for Jesse moving forward unless he went on a crazy comp run, Shima goes into comp run, Lydia goes into comp run, and he's always the first person to go from that side. So while Jesse ends up getting sniped out of the game, kind of very dramatically, he's fucked anyways. And his placement is probably 2 to 3 weeks down the line, if not just the following week. If anything, yeah, you could argue it kind of screwed up Kevin, but Jesse's main target was Kevin, not Jeff and Jordan. So in a lot of ways, I think getting rid of Jesse was almost Kevin's best case scenario, even though he had nothing to do with it. I didn't put this in the top 5 just because I don't know how many people are really out there arguing that Jesse was going to win BB11. I just don't think it's very discussed. But I do think when it is discussed, the narrative is Jesse was running the house, he had his cult, and then the coup d'etat totally fucked him over. Which is all true, it just leaves out the part that he was also fucked anyways. That's my first honorable mention. Does anyone have any pushback to this? It's the number 1 BB talking point. Yeah, maybe on your side of the internet. Yeah, I agree, JC. I think you're right. Kevin had so much power with the Lydias and the Natalies and the Natalies, in a way that he couldn't have if Jesse was still there. What I'm saying is, like, it's not in the Big Brother community, people aren't actively discussing, Jesse's BB11 game. I think it's a little bit more forgotten at this point. It's one of the more forgotten seasons, despite the Jeff and Jordan of it all. Natalie's one of the worst people to ever go on BB. I'm glad she did not go on during the social media era. I think it would have been a very tough thing for her. Could I do a sidebar for a second? Just talking not about Big Brother, about Love Island. Dude, people are so fucking mean. Like, the Love Island fan base. So, okay, let me take it back a little bit more. Matt Hardiman comes out with his TikTok that's like, I don't think men should watch Love Island, or men in relationships, or at the very least, I don't want to watch Love Island because I feel like it objectifies women and I'm in a relationship and that's weird. I think that's a weird perspective. I think that's weird and I disagree with it. Like it's fine. It's a goofy show. However, I think because of how sexual in nature the show is and what the show is, right? Like, we all know how Love Island works, how the challenges work. People feel like they have more of a license to be horribly cruel and mean to these cast members. And it's, like, more accepted in the community. For example, the 21-year-old woman on Love Island who has had a lot of plastic surgery done, I think Vanna, people are just so cruel and brutal to her because she looks like she had a lot of plastic surgery and she's only 21, where it's like, you could have that perspective, that's fine. Saying that on the internet in the way I've seen it being said is just so obviously mean and cruel, especially knowing she's 21, and people are just doing it because, like, signing up for Love Island means you've signed up for this degree of criticism and hate, which, like, we all intuitively know, like, we shouldn't be bad people, but for some reason we lose sight of that when it comes to certain shows. So that frustrated me because, like, of course, when I saw her and found out she was 21, I'm like, that's pretty crazy. Like, she certainly doesn't look 21. But to go out on a limb and post, like, fucked up drawings of her, it's just so gross and annoying. And, like, I feel like the Love Island community, I've seen this more there than I have even in other spaces. Like, when people were being, like, body shaming me, there was the creepy people, the weird people, and then there was a lot of people saying, hey, that's fucked up behavior, don't do that. On Love Island, this is like the discussion point, and I think that's a distinction. So that's just an observation I had. But anyways, let's go back to Big Brother. I was talking about Natalie in the social media era would have had a tough time. Does anybody want to go to the next honorable mention? Because this is about me. It's about Big Brother 25. I made it an honorable mention because we don't need to discuss it again because we discuss it all the fucking time. Cory, I was just thinking morning how Twitter will be this year for B27. What do you think in today's environment? What? Just how Twitter will be on BB27? Bad. It'll be bad. But I found the Big Brother community is bad is actually not as bad as a lot of other things. Cory flipping on Izzy lost him the game. You could mix this in with handed the game to Matt and Jag. I only want to bring this up in the scope of, like, whether or not it objectively lost me the game. Obviously, I think it didn't, but that's less important. In the moment, everyone would have murdered me and tracked down my family if I didn't flip the vote. You know, like, don't act like it was a 50-50 choice. Should he flip? Should he not flip? Everyone was so desperate for me to flip and thought I would be such a coward and such a pussy if I didn't flip. And luckily I did, because whatever backlash I got for flipping, it would have been 1,000 times worse if I didn't. So that's what I'm talking about with revisionist history. I don't care about the details of, like, do I have a better shot in the endgame with Cirie, Jared, and Izzy versus Matt, Jag, and Blue? That's a debate that you could just genuinely have. But in the moment, this was a clear fucking decision that most people, there was a general consensus it was the right move. Then Jared wins HOH the day previous, and people are like, Cory's such an idiot. So I think this is one of the most, like, clear-cut cases of, like, just results-oriented thinking. Everyone knew this was the right move. I made the right move. and then everything else happened, which is open to discussion. But like, this was just, the perspective was obvious at the time. What if you flip sides but didn't flip the vote? I mean, what is that? Jared wins the next HOH and then he solidifies? Like, the only way to actually flip is to flip. You can't just wait for your next chance because you don't know when there'll be another chance. You felt like America got big move-itis. I think that's an insane perspective, Will. As much as you could debate whether it was a good move for me, you cannot debate whether or not it was a good move for America. The fuck was America doing, keeping Izzy, riding with Suri and them? Like, that would have been insane. Maybe I had a little more longevity there, not that much more, but America, like, she obviously made the right move. I don't think anyone's even debating that. It's just, did Cory make this move because, you know. No, but it's not about just Izzy versus Felicia, Will. It's a much bigger thing than that. like, flipping the house is more than just voting one person out over the other. Geezing Traders, do you see? I didn't even put it in the top 5. What the fuck are you talking about? Are you watching? Are you listening? Are you here? Are you a real person? The power of the P. Yeah, like, for America is obviously the right move. I think the honorable mention is pretty obvious that, like, people thought it was the right move, and then when things happened in the future, people were like, oh, it was actually a stupid move and he shouldn't have done it, and it was obvious. That's silly. Okay. Are you guys ready for the actual top 5? Actual top 5. I think the top 5 is pretty distinct from these honorable mentions, in my perspective. I think there's a pretty clear distinction between them. All right, number 5, we're discussing one of chat's favorite players of all time. You guys are going to be upset that I'm tearing this king down, but it's something I have to do. Recently featured on God 101. Jackson Mickey is a bad person, but actually a pretty good player. No, he's not. He was a very bad player. He was not a dominant winner in any capacity, except for competitions. I don't think he's a bottom half player of all time by any means, but he's certainly one of the worst winners we've ever had. Pretty clearly. And I was very locked in on BB21. I feel like this is a season I could actually talk about quite objectively. Yeah, the actual revisionist history is actually a great person who played a bad game, you know? Yeah, America's right. Everyone remembers Jackson Mickey winning a ton of competitions and then making a crazy lie at the final 5 to save Holly. Absolutely. Now let's talk about what actually happened on BB21. I got my notes open. Mickey was fucked the whole time. Just to give you a better picture of Jackson Mickey's journey, because he makes it to the end as the front runner, as the biggest threat the whole time. He is safe at the final 3 via an HOH. He is safe at the final 4 via a veto. He is safe at the final 5 via an HOH. Final 6, he's vulnerable. It's Cliff and Nicole winning HOH and veto, so he does a really good job there surviving. Final 7, he wins HOH, he's immune. Final 8, he wins POV, he's immune. Final 9, he wins POV, he's immune. Final 10, he wins a field trip. If you don't remember the twist, it was a field trip that got him immunity. From the final 10 to the final 3, he was vulnerable for a single week. Now, the important thing to note there is he would have gone home on most of those weeks. Like, most of them, literally. He's nominated week 4. It's him and Jack on the block. Cliff makes those nominations. People don't remember that because they just remember Jessica actually putting him up and getting Jack out. But he's nominated week 4 as the target, bails himself out with the veto. So there he would have gotten, I think, 13th place, 12th place, something like that. Nick came out and said he would have nominated Jackson and Jack if not for Camp Comeback. Who knows if that's actually true? I think that's week 3, but, you know, it's some context. His own allies didn't like him. When his whole alliance blows up, and it's partially his fault, not all his fault, partially his fault, him and Holly are the ones on the outs. The rest of the team is kind of still together. And the only reason they're able to survive from the final 10 on, him and Holly win 3 HOHs in a row. He's going to be the target at the final 10, and he gets the fucking slip and slide. Okay, he wins that. Final 9's a Holly HOH. Final 8's a Jackson HOH. He's fully fucked if he's not winning literally every one of these competitions. Literally wasn't well situated in his own alliance. He gets to the final 5, and he's already immune. So his big move is to save Holly, which is very helpful for Jackson. It was a great move. It was a strong move. Smart move. But he was already safe, and he probably wins the game anyways because he comps out. All of this to say, Jackson clearly showed an ability to win competitions. That's his greatest strength. He also showed a capacity to think outside the box strategically. He was an active strategic player, and this is all good. The problem, socially, he was terrible. His own alliance thought he was arrogant. Christy didn't like him. His only real bonds were like Holly and Jack. He had a really weird feud with Kat, where Kat ends up not liking him. The jury's calling him out on his misogyny. The only reason he wins in the end is because he's next to his showman's partner, which you could say it's partly, shout outs to Mickey getting Holly there. It's his doing. But his jury management wasn't good by any means. Strategically, he had some ability, but really, how much ability did he have when he was being targeted for 6 weeks in a row, 7 weeks in a row? And these are some of the most inequitable comps in Big Brother history. When you look at any picture of Jackson wearing a veto or wearing the HOH key, he's drenched in water or goo or something. Baby 21 was crazy. In your opinion, who is he most comparable to? Probably Jag. I think Jag's the best. They're obviously very different people, but in their Big Brother journeys, I think, great move at the final 5. Basically had to win out otherwise. I think Jackson had higher strategic highs, but obviously Jag is much better socially. And of course, I think the biggest part of this whole thing is Jackson was very clearly bailed out by having that fucking cast. You know what I mean? The last cast where it was truly okay, it's him, Jack, Kat, Annalise, Holly, all just the hot white people working together. Nick. Do you think if anyone else wins BB21 season looked at more positively? I think if Cliff or Nicole win, maybe, but the season still would have had everything it had. But yeah, I think a little bit better. What do you think of Holly? I think Holly's one of the most overrated players of all time. Did she deserve to win over Jackson? I don't even think so, really. I think I think she's fine. She's probably a better player. In a big picture, I'd bet on Holly over Jackson, but in that game, I don't give Holly much credit. Cliff liked him. Yeah, no, he had Cliff, and that was probably his biggest strength, but he didn't. That kept him safe at the final 6. That was kind of the utility of that. But he was always being targeted. He was always in danger. And the fact that he had HOH for so many weeks hides that fact. Because he's in power and it seems like he's running things. He wasn't running shit. Tommy and Christy turned on him. His own alliance turned on him. Jack and Christy turned on it. Everyone was against. Nick turned on him. And he was able to make it work through competitions. So that's the first thing. I think Jackson is often thought of as a mid-tier winner, maybe mid-high tier. He's bottom tier for me. Better than 3 or 4 other winners. Jackson or Ian? I would probably lean Ian. Yeah, the thing is, I think Ian had so much more working against him than Jackson. Jackson had way more agency, but that agency... it's really close. I actually don't know. I could see both arguments. I would trust Ian more. I think people liked Ian and people hated Jackson. That's a huge part of it. It's a really, really important piece. I think his winning game is probably more impressive than Ian's, but I think so many of these people are better players than Mickey. He's a Josh winner for me. I think he's a little better than Josh, but I do hear you. All right, are you guys ready for number 4? Number 4 is a bit unique. I have no notes for this one. I'm going off the cuff. My number 4, the 4th worst case of revisionist history in Big Brother, Incorrect reads on GOAT's jury chances. Okay. So what the fuck does that mean? So often, and this is more so with recent seasons, live feed updates, in general, just podcasts, Reddit discussions, a lot of Big Brother players who fit in this archetype, who get very close to the end, people perceive them as much stronger players than they are because our perception of their game is totally warped from the jury's perception of their games and the player's perception of their games. Throughout BB25, everyone thought Felicia had a very strong chance in the jury because of her age and her journey and being on the block so many times, when in reality she was drawing dead from like the final 11 and was truly being dragged as long as people were willing to drag her, despite being a fun character and all the great things about Felicia. Cam, I think, is the most obvious example of literally was going to get 0 votes against anybody, had negative respect for him on the jury, but the perception was he's a nice, friendly, social guy who's playing reasonably well strategically and could win the season. He could not win the season against virtually anybody. I think he loses against Rubina. I think he loses against MJ. He obviously loses against Chelsea. Maybe Angela, he has a shot, but he had no interest in taking Angela to the end. He wanted to go with Chelsea and T-Core. But because our perception was he had the ability to get jury votes, all of his gameplay looked better. And now with this hindsight knowledge, oh, this guy actually had no shot and was basically Victoria from BB16 with like a better strategic mind, but didn't really matter. Enzo is another case of like, he's so good socially, he's really good strategically, kind of. He's well positioned, he gets to the end every time, but also he wouldn't have won his seasons. There was never really a path. He wasn't really interested in a winning path either. When you think of Enzo's game, it's like he maneuvers so well towards the end just to lose. Distinctly every time. I think Enzo could have theoretically won if he cut Cody. Does he beat Nicole? I don't think so. That certainly wasn't the vibe I got. Maybe Enzo fits this mold the least cleanly? Maybe? I think it's a pretty good fit. He's so good socially, but it doesn't translate to jury votes whatsoever. And when you think about his good social game, I think a lot of people would assume he would stand a chance in a jury against a lot of people. But the perception of Enzo was he had no shot. BB12, he had no shot against Lane. He had no shot against Hayden. I doubt he had a shot against Brittany, if it would never have gotten there. But he didn't have a shot. Enzo beats Christmas. He had no interest in taking Christmas. Yes, they did, Trokey. 100%. All of these players were discussed as potential winners, when in retrospect, the players, the jurors, had no respect for these players and had no intention of voting for them, which I think paints their entire game in a new light. Of course, Cam's able to maneuver through the game so easily when no one thinks he has any shot of getting any jury votes. Same with Felicia, same with Enzo. I think so, Giesling. I don't think you have to be, like you could be good socially and not respected as a juror, or when it comes to the jury. Taryn's high in Felicia all season. Yeah, I think, I don't want to say it's like Taryn's fault, but of course Taryn is a massive source of information for a lot of people. People just listen to Taryn instead of watching the feeds. I've been guilty of that. Like, it's fine. But I think Taryn specifically just thought Felicia could get jury votes when she absolutely could not. Thought Cam could get jury votes. He absolutely could not. I don't exactly remember his take on Enzo, but, That's an interesting perspective, Katharina. I kind of like that. Anyways, this is just a big picture thing. We'll see the same thing happen on BB27. It's just when you talk about certain players for like 80 days straight, you build a version of them in your head that doesn't really exist. So when you're presented with new knowledge, Cam actually had no respect of the jury, it's hard to like recalibrate your brain with that new knowledge because you've been thinking one way for so long. So, let's talk about my third worst case of revisionist history. The next three, I think, are all very popular opinions, but I think they are the most clear cases of revisionist history. So who won in Suri Felicia? Suri probably wins unanimously. Actually, no, she definitely wins unanimously. Yeah, there's not a single vote Felicia's in contention for. That's even up in the air. All right, number 3, we have Tyler actually had terrible jury management. I feel so strongly about this one. I think because Tyler loses the Big Brother 20, final 2 by a single vote, people have rewritten the narrative that Tyler's jury management was fucking trash, which is so humorous. Was he perfect? Absolutely not. No. I think he mishandled Sam a bit. The Bailey thing, is that really his fault? I don't know, but probably could have been managed better. At the end of the day, everybody in the fan base thought Tyler crushes everyone in the final 2. I think JC was the one that was more up in the air, but no one thought Casey was beating Tyler. Everyone knew Tyler beat Angela. Tyler beats everyone thought Tyler's winning these final 2s because of his relationships. Now, let's talk about what actually happened. Let's talk about the jurors. Let's talk about Tyler first. First of all, Tyler's jury management was not bad. He betrayed a lot of people. He explained himself well in goodbye messages. He showed jurors respect, told them why they voted him out, had a really good final speech, all that kind of stuff. He swung votes over in his final speech. Okay. So there's nothing egregious. Bailey is a case where you could say maybe he could have done better, but I think it is fair to admit that Bailey was anti-Tyler for seemingly no reason on BB20. The entire hacker, her and Bailey fight thing was totally kind of a machination of her own imagination. That Tyler didn't do anything, and she obviously was dealing with so much more than any of us could imagine in the BB20 house. So I'm not even saying this is Bailey's fault. But we all know the extenuating circumstances going on there. There was a lot going on, and a lot of that vitriol was directed towards Tyler. And I think Tyler dealt with it as best as he could, given that context. And obviously in BB22, after he does all of his bullshit with Davon and Bailey starts boasting about poisoning the jury against Tyler, which I thought was kind of funny, but that kind of informs a little bit of how the jury discussions might have been going in that jury house. Thank you, Night Cheese, for gifting. Excuse me. Oh, God, so much talking. Fessy says he voted for Casey because Casey beat him in a veto that Tyler never played in. People have discussed that. That's goofy. That's silly. Sam said she voted for Casey because she needed the money. I think there's the most poor jury management there on Tyler's side, but Sam's also insane, and that's why she said she voted that way, which is I'm willing to believe her, in which case Tyler did nothing wrong. Scotty has a million fucking stories about why he didn't vote for Tyler, when we all know the truth. He was a pissy bitch. It's fine. JC, Brett, Haley, and Angela were Tyler's votes, and they are distinctly the 4 best players on the jury. Maybe if you want to say Bailey's better than Angela, but I don't really care. They're also the players who are the most in the know. You can argue Tyler's flaw was being too behind the scenes, but we just talked about why everyone didn't vote for him. It wasn't because they thought he was a non-entity. They all had their goofy, silly reasons. And when you look at the actual vote breakdown, all of Faute voted against Tyler except for Haley, and Haley was planning on voting against Tyler. I don't know if there was a jury pact, but it certainly feels like there's a jury pact. At the very least, discussion in the jury house from this alliance that was constantly scorned by Tyler. Rockstar was bitter as well. It's not like Tyler mismanaged the Rockstar relationship. So here's all I have to say. There's so many things to criticize about Tyler's game in BB20. I mean this. Him throwing the veto at the Final 4 was a game-losing move. Him having all of these Final 2s and wanting to go to the end with Casey and JC was stupid. Those are 2 of the people he loses to. I understand Casey goes on a comp run, so it's not like he really could have done that much about it, but he had the wrong idea, and if he was in power, he still would have gone with Casey, which would have been stupid. There's a ton of stuff to criticize. His jury management wasn't the problem. And I feel like people put him in the same boat as Paul, even Dan from BB14, who, I was considering putting on this list, but ultimately, like, I know why people were bitter against Dan. I get it. I think that's a fine perspective. I don't think Dan did a terrible job jury management-wise, but, like, the nature of his moves made people bitter, and that's fine. So he made mistakes. Jury management was fine. He had better jury management than most winners. So that's my perspective on Tyler. If he ends up winning one extra vote, wins 5-4, he is immediately a Pantheon winner. I think people probably have his game right alongside Andy's. You know, it's him and Andy are like the elite games, and then Derek, depending on which game he prefers, either 1 or 3. But because the jury decided on these bullshit criteria, he's one of the worst jury management you've ever seen in Big Brother history. All right. Number 2, we're going to another misunderstood winner, in my opinion. Cory defends White Men Hour. Cody's BB22 win was BS because of pre-gaming. This is the stupidest shit I've ever heard in my life. I don't even know where to start with this one. So first of all, let's talk about what's legit. Pre-gaming happened. Cody pre-gamed. There's this whole discussion about how Derek was pre-gaming and linking all these people up. And okay, absolutely. This happened. Cody partook in pre-gaming. Why don't I care? First of all, pre-gaming happens every single returning player season that has ever happened in Big Brother history. Giesling Traders, your guy, Dr. Will, was pre-gaming the shit out of Big Brother All-Stars. As was everyone who succeeded in Big Brother All-Stars for the most part. Except maybe a Chicken George, you know? That's part 1. That's just how this thing works. Number 2, when it comes down to who are the big, like, proponents of pre-gaming, who's to blame, from what we've heard, and this information is very inconsistent, the biggest pre-gamers were Danny Briones and Janelle. Those were the people pre-gaming. Nicole was a weird case of, like, she was pre-gaming against people, but, like, not pre-gaming herself. It's, like, a weird thing. But Nicole was pre-gaming, obviously. I think the biggest, like, thing you would give Cody is, like, he obviously had Enzo. It seems to me like him and Enzo chatted, and he came in with that relationship, and I think that was incredibly valuable as the season plays out. So that's one part of it. Also, I think the pre-gaming criticism is kind of outweighed, or at least balanced, by the fact that this is the strongest cast in Big Brother history, and it's not close. BB7's the only other cast, but I frankly think the 22 cast is a lot stronger than BB7. The actual game itself, the committee runs the season. And the whole idea is Derek set up this alliance and then just played out. Memphis wasn't even on the cast at the start. It's not like Cody was pre-gaming with Christmas. The committee was not a real alliance until it became a real alliance. We saw the committee form on the feeds. That wasn't theater. That dominant alliance formed with people who did not pre-game with Cody, and then he whittled it down from there. Committee was made by Memphis, yeah. And it ended up being the most important alliance by far. Another note, pre-gaming doesn't win you 4 HOHs and 4 vetoes. If you want to criticize Cody's game, say he was very reliant on competitions. He's very likely evicted at the final 5 if he doesn't win that veto. Very likely. It's a very dangerous spot for him. It was not a clean, dominant, flawless win. The dominant alliance that ran the season wasn't pre-gamed. We saw it develop. The main people pre-gaming weren't him. He was responsible for actually evicting both of them. And All-Star seasons have pre-gaming. Everyone was doing it. That's how it works. All this to say, Cody's game on BB22, as many reasons as you have to, like, knock it. Cody pre-gamed, it was whatever. There's so many more reasons to elevate it. He's playing against the strongest cast in BB history, in my opinion. He goes to the final 3 with 2 people willing to take him to the end and lose. 2 of them being, like, consensus top 20 players. A top 10 player in Nicole.
It was a great game. And I think it's such a silly perspective saying it doesn't count because of pre-gaming. It's so goofy. Do I have anything else? He also wanted to work with Janelle and Kaser until they torched that relationship. So, like, you know, his hand was kind of forced. Like, he worked with the people he had to work with. Cody was in trouble during 22. Tyler was turning the tides on him for a bit. But more importantly, at the final 5, I believe Christmas wins HOH. And if Memphis wins that veto, Christmas wins that veto, Cody's evicted. But Cody clutched out the veto. And from that point on, it was pretty smooth sailing. Even at the final 4, Christmas winning a veto evicts him. Cody's endgame was not perfect. He had a lot of dangerous spots there. But I do think he's underrated. All right, the number one. I think this has to be number one, even if it's less significant in the scope of Big Brother history. This is the epitome of hindsight biased, results-oriented thinking, revisionist history. This encapsulates what this entire stream is about, this number one choice. And I think a lot of you guys know what I'm going to say. I've seen a lot of people mention it in the chat already. And it's not like I want to discuss Big Brother 21 again, but I think we have to. Cliff was an idiot for evicting Tommy over Holly. Yeah, I saw you, Eddie. At Final 5, Nicole won HOH and veto. I'm saying if Memphis or Christmas win that, he's pretty fucked. Like he was vulnerable to comp outcomes at the Final 5 and 4, is what I'm saying. So he was never really in danger because he won, but whatever. All right, let's talk about Cliff. Cliff misplayed the endgame very hard. His mistake, though, was not evicting Tommy. That was fine. At the time of this discussion, people were literally split 50-50 which option made more sense. Because you have to think of this season through the perspective not of Cliff and Nicole as a duo, but as Cliff as a solo player. At the Final 5, he has a choice. Do I evict Holly, splitting up Jackson and Holly, or do I evict Tommy? Holly and Jackson are going to keep Cliff over Nicole. Especially Jackson, who's like the main decision maker. Jackson loves Cliff. Jackson wants to go to 3 with Cliff. He wants to go to 2 with Holly, but he wants to go to 3 with Cliff. Tommy, on the other hand, definitely more up in the air. Definitely more likely to take Nicole over him. In these endgame comps, Tommy was a much better competitor than Holly. They're both good. They're both in the same tier. But Tommy had proven to be slightly better in these like mental plus physical combined comps. Which is what you expect coming into the Final 4 and 3. He makes a huge mistake. His mistake, first of all, is letting Nicole win the Final 4 HOH, throwing it to Nicole. That was insane. That is a disastrous move. It's very counterintuitive. In the Final 4, you cannot allow your ally to be HOH. It's the worst thing that can happen to you. You need your ally to not be HOH so they can, vote to keep you or be voted to be evicted next year. By having Nicole win the Final 4 HOH, he was fucked. Because now all of a sudden Jackson has to pick between him and Holly instead of him and Nicole. That's not a hard decision. Same thing if Holly wins the veto, is picking between Jackson and Cliff instead of Cliff and Nicole. So that was the mistake. A lot of people don't remember part of the deal to keep Holly was Holly would throw the Final 4 HOH and veto. And she did. Am I crazy? That happened. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm genuinely asking. I believe Holly did throw those comps. Which makes it so obvious that Cliff did make the right move at the Final 5. Because now all of a sudden, him and Nicole have a 2/3 chance of winning that veto, evicting Jackson and Holly, and actually just getting to the Final 2 where Cliff obviously wins. It's the same thing with Tyler. It's the same thing with Cody. They make mistakes in the endgame, but people misremember what those mistakes were. He did such a good job manufacturing this world where he has the greatest possibility of getting to the end, and because it doesn't work out, because of his own decision making, people look at this move as like, what a fucking idiot. It was super up in the air. Cliff and Nicole would have been a duo that needed to be split up regardless if Tommy was there to win a veto at the Final Four. It's not even clear that Tommy evicts Jackson at 4. Tommy probably evicts Cliff or Nicole. More likely Cliff. So I'm like, so this is like the correct move by Cliff. I think him evicting Holly would have been stupid. And it just didn't work out. So the entirety of the Big Brother community remembers Cliff as the idiot who didn't break up Jackson and Holly. How does he get to Final 2? Didn't watch BB21, so curious. He has a lot of ways to get to the Final 2. If Holly's throwing HOH and veto, all he needs is him and Nicole to beat Mickey in the veto. If either of them do, they're evicting probably Jackson, and then they have a 50-50 shot in part 3 to beat Holly. They take each other. Holly probably takes Cliff over Nicole, even if he loses. He might be able to give himself 100% Final 2 shot. Nicole, the girl who's mad about Janelle All-Stars 2, that's the one. Who does Jackson vote out if Holly goes at 5 and Nicole wins the veto? He wouldn't vote. You're saying if Nicole wins HOH and veto, in that case, Cliff would be the deciding vote. Would Cliff win if he was in the Final 2? I'm not sure. I would assume so. I'd think. He would have had a lot of agency to that point. He was well-liked, respected. Maybe not, but I'm not, going to pretend like I'm a genius. Super well-informed on all the Final 2 matchups. Jurors have said they would have voted for him. Sounds familiar to me. If Nicole was HOH and Jackson had the veto, and he had to pick between Tommy and Cliff, I don't know what he would have done, but I think the smarter move is to evict Tommy, right? I think the smarter move is to evict Tommy there and just try to win that Final 3 HOH. Him and Cliff were close. Even knowing Cliff might take Nicole, I think he would think he had a chance of having Cliff take him, and Tommy's the best competitor left at that spot, obviously. So this is Cliff's fault. Cliff lets Nicole win the final 4 HOH, which I don't remember exactly what the comp was. Maybe she would have won anyways. I think it was like an endurance comp where you think Nicole would beat Cliff. But that really was the losing move. Is there any chance he'd have taken Mickey? He beats Mickey. I think he pretty clearly beats Mickey. I think him or Nicole beats Mickey. And that's why Mickey's a worse player than people say. It was the ropes, yeah. I mean, you'd think Nicole would beat Cliff anyways there, which makes it even, an even better move for Cliff. Yep, Shay. I've talked about some stuff today, actually, about that. Nicole might have lost to Mickey, maybe. Again, I'm not gonna pretend like I know. You can schedule the rewatch on Patreon to post in case the Wi-Fi's spotty. It's less about the Wi-Fi. We just gotta actually record them. Who does America think the BB goat is? Dan, I would assume. I haven't really asked her, but she definitely is a Dan person. Okay, that'll do it. Thank you all for watching. Just under an hour. A perfectly executed stream, might I say. You love to see the viewership build as stream goes on. But yeah, nice classic Cory stream after my last stream, which was something. It was certainly one of the streams of all time. I had a good time. But I'm going to go watch Love Island. Is there anybody to raid? Any of the homies live? The 8-hour stream during BB. Relax. I don't think anyone's live, right? Nope. Okay.